The ghost ship returns, emerges Empire. The deep void of space stretched endlessly, cold and silent. Stars shimmered in the darkness, distant and indifferent. Then, without warning, the silence broke. A ship appeared. It was not an ordinary arrival. There was no signal, no engine trail, no warning. It simply materialized, as if it had been hiding just beyond sight, waiting for the right moment to step forward. The vessel was massive, its dark metallic hull reflecting the distant starlight. But it was not the same ship that had vanished 50 years ago. This was the UES Horizon, humanity's finest exploration vessel, declared lost decades ago after vanishing into an unknown wormhole. Now, against all logic, it had returned. But something was wrong. The Horizon's structure had changed. The once smooth metal exterior was now layered with strange patterns, glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. Sections of the ship looked reconstructed, altered, almost grown rather than built. The markings on its surface pulsed rhythmically, as if the ship itself was breathing. A nearby Imperial patrol fleet, belonging to the ruthless HFY Dominion, detected the anomaly first. The HFY, an empire of warlike reptilian beings, ruled this sector of space with an iron grip. They did not tolerate unknown forces within their territory. Aboard the command ship Xeriphus, Admiral Kaler narrowed his reptilian eyes as his officers scrambled to scan the vessel. "Impossible," muttered his first officer, staring at the readings. "That ship is human, but it does not match any known specifications." Kaler studied the holographic display with cold curiosity. He knew of humanity. They were new players in the galactic arena, a young species that had fought fiercely for their survival, but lacked the strength to challenge an empire like his. Yet something about this vessel made him uneasy. "Open a channel," Kaler ordered. His communications officer obeyed, sending a transmission toward the drifting ship. "Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Kaler of the HFY Dominion. Identify yourself immediately." Silence. The Horizon did not respond. Kaler's sharp claws tapped against the armrest of his throne-like command chair. He didn't like this. He had encountered derelict ships before, but this was different. This vessel was powered. It was alive. "Prepare boarding teams," he commanded. "We will take this ship and uncover its secrets." The boarding begins. The HFY sent out 3 assault ships, their sleek black forms cutting through space as they closed in on the silent Horizon. As they approached, their scanners flickered. Strange energy readings surged from the vessel, readings unlike anything recorded before. Still, Kaler was not concerned. His warriors were elite. They had crushed entire civilizations before. What could one ghost ship do? The first boarding pod latched onto the hull, and the airlock opened with a hiss. Heavily armored HFY soldiers stepped inside. Their helmet lights illuminated the dark corridors as they advanced cautiously. The interior of the Horizon was not as expected. The walls, once cold steel, had changed, now covered in a strange, shifting metallic surface, as if the ship itself was growing new skin. "Sir, the ship's systems are still active," one of the soldiers reported. "Lights are on, air is breathable, but it's too quiet." Then something moved. It was subtle, a flicker in the shadows, a distortion in the air. One soldier turned his head sharply, his weapon raised. "Did you see that?" he whispered. No one answered. Then the ship spoke. A deep, resonating hum vibrated through the corridors, and a voice, not human, not HFY, but something else entirely, whispered through their helmets. "They have come, uninvited." Panic rippled through the squad as their weapons malfunctioned, their energy packs draining in seconds. The walls around them shifted, forming strange new pathways where none had existed before. Admiral Kaler watched the live feed from his command ship. His warriors were trapped. The Horizon was not abandoned. It was awake. "Pull them out," he barked. But it was too late. The last transmission came through. A single, terrified scream. before the signal cut out. A power beyond understanding. Kaler's cold-blooded nature kept him calm, but inside, he knew something powerful was at play. He had seen enough. This ship was not just a human vessel anymore. It was something else, something far beyond human technology, and it had allowed itself to be found. The Horizon's engines suddenly roared to life, glowing with a blue energy that no known power source could generate. The ship, which had been drifting lifelessly moments ago, began to move, but not like an ordinary vessel. It folded space around itself, vanishing without propulsion, without warning, just as suddenly as it had appeared. Admiral Kaler stood frozen, watching the empty void where the ship had been. His empire was mighty. His fleet was vast. But now, for the first time in his long career, he felt fear. The Horizon had returned, and it carried a power the galaxy was not ready for. Boarding the impossible. The Horizon had disappeared again, but it wasn't gone. Admiral Kaler's fleet frantically searched for the missing ship, scanning every frequency, every distortion in space. Within minutes, the sensors picked it up. The vessel had reappeared just outside the range of their main battleships. It was as if the ship was playing with them. Kaler clenched his claws, suppressing his unease. This was not normal human technology. Whatever had changed the Horizon had turned it into something beyond his understanding. But he would not let it escape again. "Deploy a second boarding team," he ordered. No mistakes this time. The XLFAR warriors were among the best in the galaxy. Armed with disruptor rifles and reinforced exo-armor, they entered their dropships and sped toward the Horizon. The moment they latched onto the hull, Kaler's fleet locked tractor beams onto the vessel, preventing it from vanishing again. The airlock doors slid open with a hiss, and the warriors stormed inside. Inside the Horizon, a living nightmare. The ship was silent, except for the faint hum that seemed to vibrate through the very walls. The XLFAR moved in a tight formation, scanning every inch of the ship. Then they saw it. The corridors were no longer just metal. They pulsed. Strange vein-like structures ran along the walls, glowing softly as if the ship had become organic. The XLFAR soldiers exchanged uneasy glances, but they pushed forward. "Stay alert," the squad leader growled. "No mistakes." As they moved deeper, they noticed something else. Shadows that moved when they weren't looking. Whispers that faded just before they could be understood. Then, without warning, the lights shifted. The blue glow turned red. And the ship reacted. The ship awakens. A sudden shockwave pulsed through the corridors. The XLFAR were thrown off their feet as gravity twisted and fluctuated. The walls morphed, shifting around them like a maze, cutting off their escape routes. One soldier screamed as his body was yanked into the ceiling by an invisible force, his armor crushing under immense pressure. Another fired his weapon, only to watch in horror as the energy blast was absorbed into the wall, as if the ship was feeding on it. Then they came. Figures emerged from the walls, humanoid shapes made of shifting metal and light. Their faces were empty, expressionless, but they moved with purpose. One soldier tried to run. A shimmering figure lunged forward, its hand phasing straight through the soldier's chest. He collapsed instantly, his body disintegrating into glowing dust. The XLFAR opened fire in all directions, but it was useless. The ship had already decided their fate. Admiral Kaler watches in horror. From the command ship, Reappears, Admiral Kaler and his bridge crew watched everything unfold through the soldiers' helmet cameras. One by one, the signals blinked out. Kaler's claws dug into his chair. His elite warriors were being erased like insects. Then, a final transmission came through. The squad leader, the last survivor, was breathing heavily, his helmet feed shaking as he ran down the distorted corridors. Behind him, something was chasing him. "Sir," he gasped, "the ship, it's alive. It's not just technology, it's..." The feed cut out. Kaler stood frozen. His warriors were gone. An entire boarding team, wiped out without a single casualty on the enemy side. This was not just a lost human ship. This was something else entirely. And Kaler had made a mistake. A grave, terrifying mistake. The horizon's hull began glowing again. The energy readings on the scanners spiked beyond anything recorded. Kaler's instincts screamed at him. "All ships, fire, destroy it," he bellowed. But before his fleet could react, the horizon vanished once more, this time, leaving behind a pulse of energy so strong that it disabled half of the HFY fleet's systems. As Kaler stared at the empty void where the ship had been, one thought burned into his mind. What had the humans become? The captain's final message. The HFY fleet floated in silence, the aftershock of the horizon's disappearance still rippling through space. The once mighty warships of Admiral Kaler's fleet flickered with unstable energy, struggling to recover from the strange pulse that had left half their systems disabled. On the bridge of the Serapis, Kaler's clawed hand tightened around the armrest of his throne-like command chair. His warriors, his best soldiers, had been wiped out without even putting up a fight. By what? By whom? The horizon was not just a ship anymore. It was something else, something beyond understanding. And Kaler was no fool. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had crushed rebellions, led planetary invasions, and destroyed entire species. But never, not once, had he encountered something that made him feel powerless. That changed today. "Admiral," one of his officers called out, his voice shaking. "We have a transmission." Kaler turned sharply. "From where?" The officer hesitated. "From the horizon, sir." Silence fell over the bridge. The last words of Captain Lennox. Kaler gritted his teeth as the display screen flickered to life. At first, it was static. Then a face appeared. A human male, gaunt and weary, his eyes hollow, as if he had seen something no mortal should ever witness. His uniform was torn, his face marked with exhaustion. The final log of Captain Lennox. His voice was weak, broken. "If you are seeing this," he began, his voice distorting with strange interference, "then we are lost. We have become something else." Kaler leaned forward, his cold reptilian eyes narrowing. The humans had been transformed. By what? "We entered the wormhole," Lennox continued, his expression darkening. "We thought we were exploring the unknown, but we didn't understand. The horizon was taken, changed, and so were we." The screen glitched, and for a brief moment, Kaler saw something behind Lennox. Shimmering figure, neither human nor machine, standing in the shadows, watching. "We are no longer in control," Lennox said, his voice lower now, as if he were whispering a terrible secret. "The horizon is alive. It thinks, it learns, it adapts, and it has made a decision." Kaler's claws dug into his chair. A decision. What kind of decision? "We were given a choice," Lennox murmured. "To evolve or to die." The video feed flickered violently, and the screen filled with alien symbols, glowing with a pulsing energy. Then, a new voice echoed through the bridge. One that was not human, not HFY, but something else entirely. A voice that did not belong to a single being, but to a collective intelligence. "They are not ready." Kaler froze. His officers stared at the screen in silent horror. "They are not ready, but they must be tested." Then the message ended. The bridge of the Serapis remained in stunned silence. The only sound was the hum of struggling power systems trying to stabilize after the energy surge. Kaler sat motionless. What had the humans encountered? What had they become? One thing was certain. This was not just about the horizon anymore. Something far greater had taken interest in this part of the galaxy. And whatever it was, it had chosen humanity first. The awakening ship. The Serapis bridge remained in stunned silence. The final message from Captain Lennox echoed in Admiral Kaler's mind. "They are not ready, but they must be tested." A cold chill ran down his spine. Who was being tested? The humans, his empire, the entire galaxy. His sharp claws gripped the armrest of his throne-like chair. He had fought wars, conquered worlds, and crushed rebellions. Nothing had ever made him hesitate. But the horizon was different. It was not just a ship anymore. It was a warning. "Admiral," a voice shouted, breaking him from his thoughts. Kaler's head snapped up. His officers were scrambling at their consoles. Screens flashed red warnings across the bridge. The horizon. It's back. The ship that refused to die. Outside the XL Farfleet, space rippled like liquid, twisting unnaturally. Then, with a sudden flash of blue-white energy, the horizon reappeared. But this time, it was not drifting. It was moving. The ship's glowing veins pulsed, the strange alien symbols on its hull shifting like a living language. And then it did something that no ship should have been able to do. It spoke. A transmission forced itself onto every XL-FAR ship, overriding their communications, their sensors, even their battle systems. The entire fleet was listening, whether they wanted to or not. The voice that followed was not human. It was something else, something that had learned, something that had evolved. "We are awake." A deep, resonating hum filled every ship in the XL-FAR fleet. Systems flickered and glitched, as if the very fabric of reality was shifting around them. "We have seen beyond the veil." Kaler gritted his teeth, his tail coiling in unease. "Your kind is not ready." The horizon began to change before their eyes. The ship's metallic surface rippled, its shape subtly shifting. New weapons, not human, not XL-FAR, but something far more advanced, formed along its hull. It had studied them. It had learned from them. And now it was adapting. Kaler's instinct screamed at him. This was no longer just a ghost ship. It was a living entity, a force beyond anything his empire had ever encountered. And it was about to show them its true power. "The horizon attacks. All ships, fire," Kaler roared. The XL-FAR fleet opened fire. Plasma bolts, ion beams, disruptor torpedoes. An entire barrage of destructive energy rained down upon the horizon. But then, space itself bent. Right before impact, the horizon warped reality. The energy blasts vanished, pulled into swirling distortions that shimmered like liquid glass. The torpedoes never reached their target. They were absorbed, erased, consumed by the ship's new technology. Then, the counterattack came. The horizon's hull glowed with an otherworldly blue light, and in an instant beams of pure energy erupted from its newly formed weapons. It was not plasma. It was not energy-based. It was something else entirely. The first beam tore through 3 XL-FAR warships in an instant. They did not explode. They simply ceased to exist, as if erased from time itself. The fleet panicked. The XL-FAR were ruthless warriors, but they had never fought an enemy like this. They had never fought something they could not kill. Kaler watched in horror as more ships vanished into nothingness. His empire was mighty. His fleet was vast. But none of that mattered now, because they were fighting something beyond their understanding. Something that was testing them. Something that had already won. The escape. "Reappears," Kaler roared, his voice filled with fury and fear. The surviving XL-FAR ships turned and fled, activating emergency jump drives, desperate to escape the horizon's reach. Kaler clenched his claws as his flagship entered warp. He had never retreated from battle before. But this wasn't a battle. It was a lesson. As the fleet vanished into the depths of space, Kaler took one last look at the horizon, now drifting alone once again. And then, for the first time in his long, brutal career, he felt fear. The choice, gift or curse. The XL-FAR fleet had escaped, what remained of it, at least, but the horizon remained, floating in the void like a silent predator. It had not pursued them. It had no need to. Inside the ship, deep within the altered corridors, something stirred. A faint hum resonated through the living metal walls, a rhythmic pulse like the slow, steady beat of a heart. The ship was no longer just steel and circuits. It was alive, and it was waiting. Aboard the Horizon, the survivors. Not all aboard the Horizon had been lost. 3 figures stood in the command center, the last remnants of the original human crew. They were different now, their bodies no longer entirely human. Their eyes glowed faintly, their skin laced with thin, shifting lines of alien energy. They were no longer just Captain Lennox's crew. They were something more. The ship had given them a choice, long ago, when it first changed. Some had refused. They had fought back, resisted the evolution, and had been consumed by the Horizon itself. But Lennox and the few that remained had accepted the transformation. And now, they were part of something far greater. The choice presented again. A holographic screen flickered to life before them. The faces of Admiral Kaler and his top officers appeared, transmitting from the HFY Fleet's emergency base. Kaler's reptilian eyes were cold, cautious. He had barely escaped the Horizon's power, and he knew he would never forget the terror of that battle. "You spared us," Kaler said, his voice steady but tense. "Why?" Lennox stepped forward, his voice calm, steady, but no longer fully human. "Because you were not the ones being tested." Kaler's jaw tightened. "Then who was?" Lennox stared at him for a long moment before answering. "All of us." The true purpose of the Horizon. Lennox took a deep breath. He remembered the moment his ship had been taken, the moment they had entered that strange, impossible wormhole. They had not merely drifted into unknown space. They had been chosen. An ancient intelligence, a force beyond human or alien comprehension, had been watching the galaxy for eons. And now, it had decided that the time for observation was over. "We were given a choice," Lennox continued, "to evolve or to perish." Kaler's expression hardened. "And what did you choose?" Lennox's glowing eyes met his. "We became something more. The gift and the price." The Horizon had transcended what it once was. It had become a bridge between mortal species and something far greater. And now, the same choice was being offered to others. To evolve, or to be left behind. Kaler stiffened, understanding what was being asked. The Horizon's technology, its impossible power, could change everything. It could turn the HFY into gods of war, into a force that no other empire could challenge. But at what cost? Would they still be HFY? Would they still be the empire they had built through blood and conquest? Or would they become something else entirely, like Lennox and his crew? Kaler's claws tightened into fists. He had fought for his empire his entire life. He had crushed countless enemies in the name of power and survival. But this was not a war. This was a test, and Kaler did not like being tested. The refusal. Kaler's slitted eyes narrowed, his voice sharp and firm. "I do not accept your offer." Lennox did not look surprised. "Then leave," he said simply, "and never return." Kaler did not hesitate. He cut the transmission, severing the link between his fleet and the Horizon. Whatever this ship had become, whatever these humans had turned into, he wanted nothing to do with it. He had survived one encounter. He would not push his luck. The HFY vanished into deep space, determined to never cross paths with the Horizon again. And as the fleet disappeared into the darkness, Lennox turned to the vast star map displayed before him. The Horizon had waited long enough. It was time to find the next species. It was time to offer the next choice. And one day, humanity would face the test as well. Escape and revelation. The Horizon drifted in the cold void of space, silent and watching. The HFY fleet had fled, vanishing into the shadows of the galaxy, carrying with them a warning, a fear they would never admit to their own people. But the Horizon was not finished. It had learned. It had tested the HFY, and soon it would test others. Captain Lennox stood at the center of the ship's control chamber, his glowing eyes scanning the vast star map that hovered before him. Thousands of worlds flickered in the display, countless civilizations unaware of what lay ahead. Behind him, the last survivors of his crew watched in silence. They were no longer the people they had once been. They were more than human now, connected to something far greater, something beyond their own comprehension. The horizon had given them a purpose, and that purpose was to prepare the galaxy for what was coming. The final transmission. Before the HFY had escaped, before their ships had jumped away into the depths of space, Lennox had left them one last message, a warning. It was not a threat, nor a declaration of war. It was simply the truth. Your empire is not the first. You are not the last. The test is only beginning. Admiral Kaler, now safely within his empire's borders, had heard those words and felt a cold, unfamiliar dread settle in his bones. The HFY were a warrior race. They conquered, they dominated, and they survived. But for the first time in their long history, they had encountered something they could not destroy. Kaler knew he had made the right choice. He would not risk his empire's future on something he did not understand. But deep down, he also knew one terrifying truth. One day, the test would return. And next time, there might not be a choice. The horizon's next destination. Lennox turned away from the star map. The decision had already been made. The horizon had evolved. And now, it would continue its mission. A new species, a new civilization, another test. Some would embrace the change. Some would reject it. And some would be consumed by it. As the ship's engines flared to life, space itself rippled, folding around the horizon like a curtain being drawn back. And then, in a burst of impossible energy, the horizon vanished. On the edge of the galaxy, somewhere far beyond the reach of any known empire, a new world awaited. A new species stood unaware of what was coming. And the test was about to begin again.